It is my sincere pleasure to introduce Cynthia Leibrock.
Thank you. I start out every presentation talking about my brother. I have a brother who has schizophrenia. And when he was a young man, basically about the same age as many of you in this room, it was as if someone walked up in back of him, injected him with a drug, and he became a different person within about a 2-week period of time. We had absolutely no clue that this was going to occur. He was doing great in school. He just graduated from high school. He was going on to college. He was tall, good looking, athletic, and suddenly we were faced with someone that we couldn't even recognize. We had two choices when this occurred. We could either put him in an institution or we could keep him at home. So of course we tried to keep him at home. But my brother is 6'9". He can be really hard to handle, and we were forced to put him in an institution. I saw firsthand the impact of an institutional environment in a person's life. My brother was basically disabled at that institution, and I can tell you how I know this. It took them years to stabilize him in the institution before he could come back to our home. And when he finally did come back, he had another setback. We thought we were going to have to institutionalize him again. Only this time there was a halfway house in our neighborhood with house parents, a supportive residential environment, and they were able to stabilize him within 2 weeks versus the years in that institutional environment. This is the kind of impact that you have with every design decision that you make. With every detail that you put into your projects, you either create people with disabilities or you eliminate disability by design. You do not accommodate it. People are only disabled when they can't do what they want to do. And if you can help them do that through the design of your buildings, you eliminate disability by design. So you made a big mistake. You sat up in the front. Yeah, may I borrow your glasses for a second? What's your name?
Michaela.
Michaela, okay. So I have Michaela's glasses. This is an orthopedic device that lets her do what she wants to do, so she's not one of those disabled people over there. I want you to think of interior design and architecture as a kind of orthopedic device that lets people do what they want to do so they are no longer disabled. The second point that I want to make is that I want you to use your creative skills to visually integrate the ideas that we're going to talk about today, or nobody's going to want this stuff in their home or office. We constantly think it's okay to segregate by design. It's okay to put all those disabled people on the ramp while everybody else goes in the front door. We have all these products that serve as emblems of age and disability, and they advertise our physical differences. So we have to use our creative skills to make sure that doesn't happen. Let me give you an example. We live down in Lamar, Colorado, a small ranching town down there, and the church wanted to put a lift on the front of the church to get up about a dozen stairs. It was way too many stairs to build a ramp. So they put this lift on, thinking that they're going to help older and disabled people get into the church. Well, it was mostly elderly widows that needed the help. And these women continued to drag themselves up by the handrail going up those stairs rather than get on this stigmatizing item, that vibrates them in front of the whole congregation, that, points them out as unusual or different, that their efficacy issues with using the controls, complicated. They never used the lift. So this is the point I'm trying to make. There are so many products that we put into our projects that stigmatize, and we need to use our creative skills to visually integrate these items so that they don't segregate by design. The third point I want to make is probably the most important point that I'll make today. This is an opportunity for you to make a tremendous difference, to make a major contribution. I started out in high-end residential interior design, basically making rich people look richer. That isn't what it's supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about improving the quality of people's lives, no matter how much money they have. but that isn't what I was doing. I was putting status symbols in people's homes, and I thought that somehow I would find eternal satisfaction by doing this, and it didn't quite work out that way. So then I switched to contract, and I had a little more success with that. I built up my business until I had about a dozen employees, which is a good size small business, and I sort of graduated out of my area of expertise to where I was just trying to bring in work all the time, working with bankers and lawyers, handling business problems, not really doing that much design. And the further I got into this, the less I liked what I was doing, until I got to a point where I really, really wanted out of interior design. But I had a dozen employees. I hung on, I didn't want them to be fired, until I woke up one day and I just couldn't do this anymore. And I walked into this thriving business, closed the doors, fired all 12 employees, something I'm not proud of to this day, walked away from this thriving business in a Victorian restoration that I had restored by hand. I mean, I was highly invested in this thing. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I'm in my 30s. I don't have children, so that isn't how I'm going to make my contribution. It had to be career, and I had absolutely no clue what I was going to do. Well, one of the employees that I fired invited me into a Bible study. Now, I'm not going to try to impose my value system on you here, and truthfully, I only went to the Bible study because I felt guilty for firing her. That's, why I went. So I showed up, had no interest in a Bible study, but I went to this thing, and I showed up with this list of really tough questions to antagonize the poor guide in the Bible study. I worked on her all summer with these really tough questions. And all I can tell you is that when I got out of that study, I had this very focused mission to improve the lives of older and disabled people through interior design. Now, I know this is wonderful. She's on a mission, sweet young thing. Well, the real miracle here is I stayed on that same track for 35 years. I didn't deviate from it. And I'm like all the rest of you guys. I love to try new things. I'm always experimenting, jumping around in lots of different directions. I stayed on one track for 35 years. Why? Simple reason. I loved what I do. I love what I do. I've loved it for the whole time. And that's what I want for you. I want you to love what you do, and I want you to realize that you're making a major difference by what you do. I want you to create a body of work that will be a design legacy, that will continue to contribute for decades, even after you're gone. We're not building 5, 10-year buildings here. We're building buildings that empower for decades or disable for decades. And what I want you to do is integrate universal design into every project, not just projects for older and disabled people, but I want to teach you today about some of the basics that you can put into every project so that you can make this amazing contribution, so that when you're my age, you can look back at what you've done and realize that you've done the ethical, right thing with your life, that you've made a difference. That's the main point that I want to make today, and it's what I want you to think about. So with that, let's go on to the slides.